Hello everyone, welcome to What If Issei Was Betrayed and Took Revenge as Jack the Ripper movie. Before we start, please go support Roberto Torres 769 for writing that awesome fanfic. This is the translated version I made. There will be some mistaken character's gender, but of course Issei is a male. Issei suffers betrayal from everyone because of his brother Ryu, who committed a horrible act of treachery. Years later, he returns, no longer as a pervert, but as a killer. Chapter 1. My life no longer has meaning. I can't believe it. I had an amazing life, but now everyone has left me. Rias, Akeno, Asia, they've all left me. Even Mio, Drake, abandoned me for Ryu. You might be wondering who I am. Well, my name is Issei Hyoudou, not just Issei. I used to be the Sekiryuutei, the pillar of the alliance. I had everything, but everything changed when he appeared. Flashback. Narrates Issei. Hello, my name is Issei Hyoudou. You might be wondering who I am. Well, I'm the Sekiryuutei, the Red Emperor, the Op-Eye Dragon. I am the pillar of the alliance. Well, I've lived through many adventures with my friends and partners, and who are they? Well, there are Akeno, Asia, Zenobia, Irina, Ravel, Ross, Sona, Tsubaki, Serafal, Mio, Murayama, Cadis, Aika, Office, Tiamat, Kaneko, Kuroka, Li Fei, Yasaka, Nyx, Seekvaira, Kus, Penemu, Velez, Aphrodite, Artemis, Athena, Gabriel, and not forgetting the most important one, Maria's Gremory, but I only see her as Maria's. Now I can bury that dark past I have. I no longer live with guilt, now I am happy like this. I'm happy having this life. I never thought I'd live all this, haha, now I find myself arriving home. I narrated. Issei opened the door of his house where he was greeted by Miku, his mother. Miku? Hello son, look who's back. She said with a smile. Miku took Issei to the room where there was a chestnut tree. Issei. Ryu, he said, surprised. Ryu Issei, Daiho happy. And so they embraced like brothers, where a feeling of brotherhood was evident, or so it seemed. Ryu. You've grown so much, little brother, he said with a smile. Issei. Same here, brother. You're 20 years old now. He said with a smile. Asia. Issei-san, we've met your brother and we can say that he's very polite and kind. She said with a smile. This is a little uncomfortable for Issei. Kaneko. But we like you just the way you are, she said with a smile. Issei and Ryu were talking about how Ryu had returned from his university studies and would now be living with him. Ryu. Thinking, hey little brother, I'm going to take everything from you, literally everything you have. He thought arrogantly. Some time later. During this time, Issei began to notice how his brother flirted with his girls and they didn't do anything about it. He also noticed how his girls were more distant with him and this worried him. He would talk to Ryu seriously. Issei. Brother, can I talk to you? He said while watching him chatting with Zenobia, who seemed happy with Ryu. So Zenobia left and Ryu was alone with Issei. Ryu. What do you need, brother? He said with a smile. Issei. Look, I know you want to meet my partners, but you've been a little flirtatious with them lately. He said seriously. Ryu. So what? I don't see anything wrong with it. He said, now serious. Issei. I want you to stop flirting with them, please. Do it out of respect, please. He said seriously. Ryu looked around and also noticed that Mio was asleep, so Ryu grabbed Issei by the neck. Ryu. Look, you useless fool, you don't tell me what to do. Now I'm going to take all your women away, since this is my revenge for what you did to me years ago. He said angrily while grabbing Issei by the neck. Issei tried to hit him, but realized that Ryu had superhuman strength, so he couldn't breathe. Nor could she use Mio's power, since for some reason she couldn't use her powers. Ryu. I hope you understand, this life is mine now, he said as he let go of him, and he left with an arrogant smile. Issei looked in surprise at Ryu, who was leaving and at the same time touching his neck. Some time later. Issei had returned home to tell the girls about Ryu, but upon opening the door, he was greeted by a hard slap from Rias and another from Sona. Rias. How could you hit Ryu? She said very seriously and angrily. Issei. But he choked me. He said seriously. Sona. That's a lie. Ryu already told us what you're really like and I'm very disappointed in you. She said seriously. Issei. What did he tell them? He said seriously. Ravel. Stop lying, we know you only want us for our bodies and riches, she said seriously and angrily. Office. You will not sleep in this house tonight until you change your attitude, she said seriously and closed the door in Issei's face. That day Issei had to go to a hotel to sleep that night. Months later. During that time, Issei witnessed all his girls leaving his side. Even Mio stopped speaking to him. His friends, Kiba, Gaspar, Sererg and Vali, also stopped talking to him and now spent more time with Ryu. The factions no longer spoke to him. When he tried to speak with a faction leader, it only lasted about 5 or 10 minutes because they made excuses about having things to do or paperwork to do. Only the leader of the Aztec faction was the only one with whom he spoke a lot. They even went to bars to talk or to karaoke to sing. That pleased Issei, since at least he had a good time with one of them. But then he received a message from the faction summoning him to Gremory Castle. He left as soon as possible, and upon arriving he saw his parents and all the factions, including Office and Great Red, were there. The only one missing was the leader of the Aztec faction. Issei. Hello, what do you need me for? He said seriously. Nobody said anything until Issei felt many chains on his body. Issei. What is this? He said, looking at the chains. Auden. Brat, because of your attitude you will cease to be the pillar of the alliance, he said seriously. Rias. Besides, our commitments are cancelled, she said seriously. Issei was incredulous. They couldn't do that until Great Red and Office began to take away the powers they had given him. Issei was now a demon, but Rias took away his pawn pieces, leaving him a human. Issei. Mio, help me, he said, trying to activate his glove. Mine. I'm sorry, but I'm giving up on you being my host. Ryu is a better option for me. She said seriously. Issei. But what about everything we've been through, adventures, rescues? It means nothing to you. He shouted angrily while shedding tears, feeling betrayed by everyone for his brother. Mine. Idiot, I'm known as the Breast Dragon, do you know how low my reputation has fallen? She said seriously. Thus Azazel and Ajuka removed Mio from her body, now that she was a human. Azazel. Sorry kid, business is business. He said seriously as Mio's gem entered Ryu's body. So Grayfia made a magic circle in which he appeared in her house. Issei lay down on his bed while remembering the good times he lived with his parents, loved ones, and friends, until Ryu came and took all of that away from him. So Issei took $4 million from his wardrobe, put it in a suitcase, and left. So Issei bought a small house and decided not to live with his parents anymore. Several months passed as Issei fell deeper into depression, and he realized that Ryu was a womanizer, having witnessed him sleeping with many women, including Venelana and Grayfia. Issei told Sirzechs and Sirzechs, but only received a punch from Sirzechs and a kick to the face from Sirzechs. Issei also told the girls, but this happened. Rias. Just give up, we'll never get back to you, she said seriously. Gabriel. Lying is a sin, Issei, he said seriously. Penemu punched him in the stomach, knocking him to his knees, and Office punched him in the head, knocking him to the ground. Office. We'll say it again, don't come near us, she said seriously as she walked away with the others. Several more months passed after that, and one thing that happened was Mio's release from the red glove. Now she was finally free. During that time, Issei met 3 girls who were sent by Roberto, the leader of the Aztecs, to strengthen the alliance. Those were Rina, Ikumi, and Alice. The 3 of them were Aztecs and they realized everything Issei was going through. Thus, the 3 of them became friends with Issei, and this made Issei so happy that he fell in love again. But they felt the same way, but they didn't want to see Issei like that anymore. They wanted to do something so that Issei could live in peace. Alice. What will we do? I don't want Issei to live like this anymore. She said seriously. Irina. I have no idea, we need to make a plan, she said seriously. Aika. I know how you can make Ryu and the girls leave Issei alone, she said with a smile. The 3 of them look at Aika and she continues. Aika. He told me to sleep with him for a week and he'll leave Issei alone, she said with a smile. The 3 of them opened their eyes wide and this continues. Aika. Think about it, the offer ends soon, she said with a smile. The 3 of them thought about it and saw how Issei was the laughingstock of everyone and how Ryu treated him very badly every time he passed by him. The 3. We accept, they said seriously. So they slept with Ryu just so he would leave Issei alone. Issei headed to a hotel because Irina had sent him a message telling him to go there and to a specific room. Issei. Heh, all 3 are so beautiful that I want all 3 of them to be my partners, but I'll have to wait a little while. He said with a smile. So he arrived, but once again his heart was broken into pieces. Because I could hear it in the room. Faster. I want your semen. Give me more, daddy. But harder. Issei could hear the moans of Irina, Ikumi, and Alice, who wouldn't stop moaning, and he could hear his brother's voice. Again Ryu took everything from him, and he began to cry while he continued listening to that. So he ran into the woods where he fell and his sweatshirt fell to the ground, but he didn't care and kept running. The rain soon arrived, and Issei reached a cliff. Issei. I've already lost everything I loved, he said while staring into space. She remembered all the happy moments of her life, achievements, courtship and everything so that. For his brother to take away everything he had done, there was no longer any reason to live. Issei. Forgive me, God. I swear I tried to live my life without them, but I see that this is my only way out. He said as he stepped onto the cliff. Issei apologized to God and Roberto for what he was about to do. Thus Issei jumped from the cliff, ending his life, or so it seemed. Issei didn't notice that a black car was discreetly following him, and when the person saw him jump, he quickly got out of the car, grabbed a parachute from the trunk as fast as possible, and jumped into the void. Chapter 2 Repentance. 5 years have passed, my Issei please come back. Arena narrates. The deal we made with Ryu was already over. I hate to admit it, but he knows how to buck a woman. I realized that Issei was nowhere to be found, the cafe, the library, the comic book store, the mall, he was nowhere to be seen. I even looked for it at the house where he bought it, but nothing. Even the groceries that were on the table were already rotting. I was so worried that I asked every student in the school, but nobody knew anything about him. Even Mitsuda and Motohama, who despite Issei no longer hanging out with them much, did not know Issei's whereabouts. So I called Alice and Akumi to look for Issei, and the three of us split up to search the whole town for him, but we couldn't find his scent or any trace of him. I went to the forest to look for him, but there was nothing. Then I heard a group of boys talking about something. I didn't pay any attention to it until someone said something that shocked me. Boy 1. You know, this weather reminds me of the boy I saw, he said while looking at the forest. Boy 2. How did that happen? He said, confused, as were the others. Boy 1. I was crying while I watched him run, I guess his girlfriend broke up with him, he said sadly. Boy 3. He was a fallen soldier, he said while removing his cap out of respect. Arena approached them and asked what the boy was like, and he told her what he was wearing that day and what he was like. Arena was in shock, so she went into the forest, not caring if there was a bear or wild animal. Arena. Issei, she said to no one. Arena. Please leave, she said as her eyes began to moisten. Arena. Issei, please come back. She screamed as tears streamed from her eyes. She was walking until she saw something on the floor. And that was Issei's dirty jacket, but you could tell it was one that Issei used to wear. Arena begins to cry uncontrollably as she hugs the last memory she had of Issei. Arena sniffed the jacket and found a trace of Issei, so he began to search for Issei's trail. Arena smelled Issei's trail but found him on a cliff. Arena feared the worst and looked to see if the trail had gone elsewhere, but no, the trail ended there. Arena cried uncontrollably while still hugging the jacket. She called her friends, and when they saw her crying and hugging Issei's jacket, they asked her what was wrong and where Issei was. So she told them everything. Alice fainted upon hearing this, and Akumi, unable to accept the truth, began searching for her trail, since she had a better sense of smell than Arena. Akumi spent hours searching for Issei's trail, but found nothing. So the three of them went to their shared apartment and cried like they never had in their lives. Nara searches. Issei, you have no idea how much I regret what I did. We never listened to Roberto, who said we'd regret this, and look at us now, paying for our sins. No one had it easy. Those who suffer most from betraying you are your ex-fiancés. Rias is always in her room crying while hugging an old op-eye dragon figurine. Akeno is always in her room crying over what she did. Asia doesn't eat anymore. Sometimes we have to force her to eat. Zenobia and Arena pray non-stop for your forgiveness. Kaneko cries silently. Ra spends all his time crying in his room. Ravel has returned to her castle where Razor and his fiancés try to help her move on, but they can't. Sona, Tsubaki, and Penemu are working like crazy and without rest because they haven't forgotten the betrayal they committed against you. Office, Tiamat, and Mio search for you day and night. Seraphol is in a serious emotional state. She even cancelled her own show. All your ex-fiancés are suffering in different ways. If life granted me one wish, it would be to have never met Ryu. You were even right when you told me Grayfia was sleeping with Ryu. I was an idiot for not listening to you. I just hope to see you again. In a cave. I narrated. Bali was seen descending, while 3 dragonesses watched him. Bali. I searched all over America and found nothing, he said seriously. Office. Issei, my dragon, where are you? She said worriedly. Mine. My friend, please come back, he said crying. Tiamat. Little Adigan, please come back, she said crying. Bali. You know what, I give up, he said seriously. The 3 of them look at Bali. Bali. I won't look for him anymore. Issei is free now, and I don't think he'll ever come back. He said seriously. Office grabs Bali by the neck. Office. Listen to me carefully, Bali Issei will return again. Here is his family, who love him like never before, and we will have the family we never had. She said while choking Bali. Bali. Damn it, Office. It's been 5 years. Angry shout. Bali. He's surely dead since we haven't found him, and if he isn't, do you think he'll come back after we left him? He probably already has new partners and children. He said his office let go of him and he caught his breath. The three of them imagined that and they didn't like it at all. Luckily for Volley, he escaped as the three increased their power, destroying the cave where they were. On Azazel. The crow was doing his paperwork as he was helping his assistant who was dead inside. Azazel. This is so boring. I wonder if the detective I hired has been able to find Issei. He said while writing. At that moment, the door to his office opened abruptly. It was the detective he had hired. Detective. Azazel Sama, I found him. He said seriously. The incontrato Hyoudou Issei. Chapter 3 Meeting. Upon hearing that, Azazel is surprised and grabs the detective by his jacket. Azazel. Tell me everything, he said as he sat him down and he threw all the papers away. The detective takes out a folder and pulls out some photos. Detective. I found him in Berlin, Germany. He's still alive, but he's not the same anymore. He said seriously. Azazel saw the photos and this one was different. He had white hair. Azazel. He looks very different, he said, looking at him. The detective told him everything and even showed him the recording of how Issei jumped off the cliff. Azazel. Everyone needs to know this, he said seriously. 1 week later. Azazel had organized a meeting and luckily for Azazel, everyone came, including Issei's former friends and to everyone's surprise, Roberto. Roberto. Let this meeting be quick. I don't like being with a bunch of miserable people. Said the Aztec leader seriously. Everyone felt bad upon hearing that, but Azazel begins. Azazel. Well, he sighed, the detective I hired found Issei, he said seriously. That surprised everyone and Issei's exes went to him and bombarded Azazel with questions. Azazel. Well, look, he said while showing the recording of the moment where Issei apologizes to God and Roberto for what he was going to do. Everyone watched as Issei jumped and all of Issei's exes screamed because they thought he had died. But then they saw how a silver-haired girl that nobody knew threw herself off the cliff without thinking. They all saw that and Azazel changes the image to an albino boy. Azazel. Well, the detective told me that Issei has returned. He said seriously. Roberto. What do you mean by that? He said seriously. Azazel changes his image, but from a brown-haired boy in a combat suit. Rias. Why did you put up the picture of little Issei? She said seriously and blushed upon seeing Issei dressed like that. Azazel. Well, nobody knew, but Issei was a killer. He said seriously. Everyone was silent until they all let out a shout of surprise. Gabriel. How is it possible that Issei is a murderer? I refuse to accept that. He said while denying the idea that Issei was a murderer who killed without mercy. Azazel. Calm down, Issei. He wasn't a killer who murdered women and children. He was a killer who killed hitmen, rapists, murderers, etc. What a miserable wretch. He said seriously. Gabriel, Asia, Irina and Zenobia all breathed a sigh of relief. Bekeno. And why did I stop killing? She said, confused. Azazel. We don't know. Even the detective tried to find out, but he never did. Well, he's the best assassin of all time. His nickname is the Judge of Sinners. The police, even Interpol, are trying to find him, but it seems he's very clever. He said seriously. Roberto. That's surprising. And tell me, what else do you know about the crow? He said seriously. That annoyed Azazel because of how I called him, but he continues. Azazel. You see, he found him in Berlin, Germany. Now he works as a spy and assassin. He has a wife and a daughter named Alicia. He said this while showing an image of Issei. The silver-haired woman was in a chair and below them was Alicia with a smile. That didn't sit well with their ex-partners at all, so they unleash an abysmal power. Roberto. Calm down, I remind you that you left him for an idiot, he said seriously while releasing some of his power. That calmed them down a little and she continues. Azazel. Well, my plan is to hire him to do a fake mission so that once he arrives at the location we have to talk to him and that way he'll return to our ranks, he said with a smile. Everyone except Roberto agreed with his plan and he explained how they would do it. In Berlin. Issei was visible, but he had white hair and was holding the hand of a 4-year-old girl. Alicia. Daddy, can we go to my Uncle Lloyd and Aunt Yor's house? She said with a smile. Issei. Of course, you can also play with your cousin Anya, he said with a smile. Alicia. Yesss, she said happily. Issei smiled and they arrived at their home. When Issei opened the door, he saw a silver-haired woman who, upon seeing him, went towards him and kissed him. It's great that you're back, she said with a smile. Issei. I missed you too, Fiona, he said, kissing her. Fiona. Don't say that, she said blushing. Alicia. They're flirting, she said, looking at them with a playful smile. They both blush and say nothing. So our couple went to the kitchen where they started making food to later go with their friends. So they made some meatballs and they were ready. Issei. Well, honey, let's go hang out with our friends. He said with a smile. Fiona. Of course, she said with a smile. So they went to sort things out and went somewhere else. 10 minutes later. They arrived at another house and knocked, where they were greeted by a dark-haired girl. Hello Issei, hello Fiona, she said with a smile. Both. Hi Yor, they said with a smile. Alicia. Hi Aunt Yor, she said while hugging her. Yor. Hello Alicia, he said with a smile. They enter and Alicia is with a pink-haired girl. Hi cousin, she said with a smile. Alicia. Hi Anya, she said with a smile. The girls went off to play while the adults went to the living room where a blonde man was setting the table. Oh hello Issei and Fiona, she said with a smile. Both. Hi Lloyd, they said with a smile. So they were chatting and setting the table for lunch. They ate together with their daughters until Issei received a message. Fiona. It's rude to look at your phone while we're eating, she said seriously. Issei. Sorry, but it seems important. He said, looking at the message. Issei saw that he had a job to kill someone and his payment would be $100 million. Issei. I have a job, he said seriously. The three adults became serious upon hearing that. Lloyd. How much this time? He said seriously. Issei. 100 very large, he said seriously. That surprises all three of them and this one speaks. Issei. Yor and Lloyd could let Fiona and Alicia stay, I'll go alone, he said seriously. Lloyd. It's very dangerous for you to go alone, let us accompany you, he said seriously. Issei. Isn't it more dangerous to let Fiona accompany me and have no one look after my daughter, so I'll go myself? He said seriously. Yor. Good luck. If you need help, don't hesitate to call us. She said seriously. Issei. Of course, he said with a smile. Anya. Good luck, Uncle Issei, she said with a smile. Alicia. Please come back, Dad, she said while hugging him. Issei smiled at him and stroked his head. Issei. Of course, and when I get back I'll bring peanuts for 2 o'clock, he said with a smile. Both. Yes. They said happily. So he left, but before he went, Fiona gave him a kiss, which he gladly returned. Fiona. Please come back, she said blushing. Issei. Of course, he said with a smile. So he left the place and quickly went to a warehouse, took out some keys, and opened it, where there were a large number of weapons and several motorcycles of different types. Thus, he took 2 shotguns, 2 pistols, a machete, a knife, bathed his body with holy water, and bathed each bullet in his weapons with holy water. Finally, he put on a black leather jacket and took his weapons. Once ready, he took a black motorcycle and quickly headed towards his goal. Issei. Thinking, I hope this job is quick. He said as he sped up. Chapter 4 Reunion. Issei arrived at an abandoned warehouse. Issei. It couldn't be easier, he said, seeing that there was no security. So he reached the cellar and climbed onto the roof in case there were any traps. It broke through the roof and jumped, aiming everywhere. But he saw that there was literally no one there. Issei walked and searched everywhere but found nothing until he realized too late. Issei. Damn, it's a trap. He said, running towards the exit, but it was too late as a magic barrier caught him. He got serious and pulled out his shotgun and machete. Then the Gremory clan, Sitri, the Great Red Faction, Office, Roberto and Mio, emerged from some magic circles. Rias. Issei, she said as she ran to hug him, but he dodged her and fell to the ground. Issei. To you I am judge of the sinners, Gremory, he said seriously. Rias was hurt by that because Issei called her by her last name and not her first name. Rias. Why did you dodge me? She said as she got up from the ground. Issei. This is a damn joke. I remind you that you replaced me with my brother. He said angrily. Rias, like the others, lowered her head in guilt. Searches. Issei, but he was interrupted when Issei shot him with his gun, the bullet grazing his cheek. Issei. Don't call me so familiarly, you miserable wretch. If you come here with that crap about me being the pillar of the alliance again, I won't do it. He said seriously. Roberto. Issei, he said while giving him a smile, it's good to see you again, he said as he approached. Issei. Likewise, Roberto, he said with a smile. Mio. Please, partner, come back to us, she said on her knees. Issei. No, I love them more than they could ever imagine, so they can find someone else. He said seriously. The office makes a snake of energy and says. Office. Issei, if you come back to us, I will give you my power of infinity. You will be our man, you will have the title of Dragon God. Just accept my hand and the hands of my friends. She said, holding her power in her hands. Without saying a word, Issei points his shotgun at him. Issei. No, besides, I'm already married and have a daughter and a wonderful wife, he said seriously, but with a smile at the end. In Germany. At Yor and Lloyd's house, Fiona was watching TV when she suddenly felt a heartbeat. Fiona. Thinking, I feel like Issei is speaking well of me, she thought, blushing. In the warehouse. Zeus. One question. How did you survive when you jumped off the cliff? We saw that woman jump to save you. Can I find out what happened? He said seriously. Issei remains silent but decides to answer. Issei. You see, before I launched myself, they were looking for me, he said, explaining. Flashback. In Germany, a bearded man was seen watching the report and Lloyd was with Yor. Lloyd. I'm sorry, boss, but we couldn't get into the base. It's very heavily guarded and their men are better trained than we are. He said seriously. Boss. Damn it, we have to kill that wretch, if we don't, many children will die because of those wretches, he said seriously. Yor. We need a plan, even with Fiona we can't go in, she said seriously. Boss. You have another man who can help you. He said seriously. Yor. I don't know anyone except my brother, but he's busy with something else. She said seriously. Lloyd. I don't either, I only have my friend, but he can only help me find information about the place, he can't help me with missions, especially this one, he said seriously. The boss was frustrated because there was no other man who could match their level. Then Fiona comes in and says. Fiona. I have someone, she said seriously as she entered. Boss. Yes, and who is it? He said seriously. Then Fiona takes out a folder and shows it to him. The boss saw the photos of Issei killing people who were criminals. Boss. What is this? He said seriously, looking at the photos. Fiona. Well, he's Issei Hyoudou, or better known as the Judge of Sinners, she said seriously. Chief. And he's well trained, he said seriously. Fiona. Yes, I witnessed him kill a group of 50 criminals with a pencil, she said seriously. Both Lloyd and Yor were surprised, as that was something to be respected. Boss. Seriously, wow, you don't see that every day, but where is it? He said seriously. Fiona. He retired from killing at 14 years old when, on a mission, he threw a grenade but didn't know there were children present and the grenade exploded, killing them. He witnessed their deaths. She said seriously. This surprises the chief, Lloyd and Yor, who wanted to know his potential. Boss. Bring him here and convince him to work with us. If necessary, do everything in your power. He said seriously. Fiona. Yes sir, she said as she left. Fiona narrates. It's great, I'll finally be able to have Issei come back. I really love Issei, and well, when I was 18, before I was hired as a spy, I was kidnapped by the Yakuza to be a hex slave for the boss of that area. At that time, the only fighting style I knew was karate, but unfortunately for me, the Yakuza knew karate even better than I did. I had given up, I thought it was the end for me, until my Issei arrived. I still remember how he shot them all and killed all the Yakuza without mercy. I even remember how he showed no mercy to the leader. It was incredible to see him rescue me. He freed me from there and I thanked him. He told me to be careful because someone else might kidnap me for being so beautiful. My heart beat like never before. He was the first person who had spoken to me like that and from that day on I became obsessed with him. I sought out everything about him, even though I was 18 and he was 13, that wasn't an obstacle for me to be with him. When I wanted to know more about him, they sent me to France to continue my training. So little by little I forgot about him, then I met Lloyd who was a great man, I fell in love with him, but I saw that he already had a family, at first I wanted to take Yor's place as his wife, but I realized that I was doing wrong. So the years passed and this mission arrived. It was impossible to do it, even the three of us together couldn't do much. Then I remembered Issei, the one who stole my heart. My interest returned and I investigated him, to my bad news was that he had retired and was having relationships with many women. I felt so jealous, those bitches took him from me, no, I knew him first so he's mine, I don't care if I kill them to have Issei. He is mine. I narrate. Fiona went to the airport to go to Japan. Several days later. Fiona arrived in Japan and went to Kuoh to look for Issei. She bought a car that wasn't too modern so as not to attract attention. She was excited even though she didn't show it. She reached the road where it was raining and the weather was very heavy. She drove until she reached a cliff and saw a brown-haired teenager. Fiona narrates. I see that boy, he seems emotionally hurt, wait a minute, it's Issei, my Issei is very hurt, not physically but emotionally. I see that he's saying something I can't quite hear, but in that I see something I couldn't even imagine in my dreams. He jumped off the cliff, oh my god, Issei committed suicide, I didn't wait long for this moment, I'm not going to waste it. So I got out and grabbed a parachute from the trunk of the car as quickly as possible, and without thinking, I jumped out. I fell much faster than Issei, so luckily I caught him and saw that he had a look of astonishment on his face, and without thinking I opened the parachute. We both fell into the water, but Issei hit a rock and was knocked unconscious. I came out of the fall okay, so I took off my parachute and picked up Issei, who was bleeding from the head. So I swam to safety and took Issei to a safe place. I reached my car while carrying Issei, put him in the car, and drove to the small house I rented. I arrived and brought Issei into my house and began to heal his head. I saw him and he seems very hurt emotionally. Issei, what did they do to you? I swear I won't let anyone hurt you. I swear. I narrate. Issei slept for the rest of the day and woke up the next day. Issei realized he was in a house and he wondered, when did I get here? Am I in heaven? That's what he kept asking himself. So he walked along, but saw that she had a bandage on her head. So he walked along, but smelled something delicious. So he arrived at the room where he saw an albino girl making breakfast. Fiona. It's good that you're awake. Sit down, I'll give you breakfast. She said seriously. Issei looked at her closely and remembered that she was the girl he had saved from the Yakuza years ago. So he sat down and Fiona arrived with 2 plates of food. Before Issei could take the plate, Fiona put it down on the table and slapped him hard across the face. Fiona. What were you thinking? She said while grabbing his shoulders and looking annoyed. Issei. What? He said, surprised to see the girl's change. Fiona. How could you even think of committing suicide? What were you thinking? She said seriously. Issei. My life has no meaning, he said with his head down. Fiona. Before we continue, do you remember me? She said seriously. Issei. If you're the girl I saved from some Yakuza years ago, he said seriously. Fiona. Yes, my name is Fiona, she said with a small smile. Issei. I am Issei, he said seriously. Fiona. I already know you, in fact I know you very well, and tell me why you were going to commit suicide, she said seriously. Issei. Since you saved me, I'll tell you, he said sadly. That's how he told Fiona everything about how he had his harem and how his brother took everything from him. Of course, he didn't mention the supernatural to her. Fiona narrates. Damn them, how could they change Issei-kun? Don't worry, my Issei, I will heal your broken heart. I don't care if it takes me my whole life. I narrate. Fiona hugged him while stroking his head. Fiona. I'm so sorry for what you went through, she said while hugging him. Issei felt his heartbeat faster and he began to cry and returned the hug. Issei cried on Fiona's shoulder as she let him release the pain he was feeling. Issei. Thank you, he said as Fiona wiped away his tears. Fiona. I see you suffered a lot, I'm so sorry, she said while giving him a smile. Issei felt his heartbeat faster. He hadn't felt this with Rias or Akeno or anyone else in his harem. Issei felt a great warmth in his heart. Issei. Thank you, he said with a smile that Fiona loved. So they both ate and Fiona told him why she loved him. Issei. I still feel guilty about that day, he said seriously. Fiona. Accept it, I know it was your mistake, but you can't live with guilt your whole life. I know you can move on, even with this. She said while touching his shoulder. Issei thought about it, what did he have now? His family had forgotten him, his girls had replaced him, his friends had left him. He had nothing left here. But he could have something if he went with Fiona, so he made a decision. Issei. I accept, the judge of sinners has returned, he said seriously. In several places, several criminals who were up to no good felt a strong chill. They didn't know why. Fiona excitedly hugs him, which surprises Issei. Fiona, realizing what she was doing, let go and looked away as she was red with embarrassment. Issei also blushed and gave a small smile. Issei went home and took his papers to leave the country. He went with Fiona to Germany to begin the mission. Several hours later. They arrived at the headquarters and the chief looked at Issei. Boss. I don't see anything special about it, he said seriously. Fiona smiled and said. Fiona. Issei, you can show us what you're made of, she said with a smile. Issei nods and they all go to the target range. So Issei saw that there were several weapons on the table, picked up a pistol, and began. Issei was shooting at the target dummies with different types of weapons. Everyone was surprised, especially Fiona, since Issei could handle any weapon, from a common pistol to a weapon that only professionals could handle. And the worst part was that he always shot in the same place. The head and chest where the heart was. Boss. Impressive, but to see if you're up to the task, you'll have to fight Lloyd hand to hand. He said seriously. Issei and Lloyd went to a fighting arena and both began to fight. In the end, Lloyd beat Issei, but it wasn't easy for Lloyd as Issei broke 2 of his ribs, gave him a black eye, and broke his left elbow. Chief. You're hired, but you need more training. Agent Lloyd, Agent Yor and Agent Fiona will take care of that. Do you agree? He said seriously. The 3. Yes sir, they said seriously. So after Issei healed, he began his training. Of course, he didn't have it easy with anyone, especially with Fiona, since she was very demanding of him. Upon completing his training, Issei was someone to be feared, so the four of them returned to attack the enemy base. Of course, Issei had a plan. It was slow but effective. In the end, the four of them won and killed the leader of the organ trafficking ring. So they celebrated, and Fiona, unable to resist any longer, kissed Issei, which surprised him and his colleagues. After that, Fiona and Issei went on dates, and both fell in love as time went on. Finally, Issei confessed his feelings to Fiona on one of their dates, and she gladly reciprocated them. After they started dating, 6 months passed and Issei proposed to Fiona, who accepted with tears of joy. Afterwards they got married and had their honeymoon, although Fiona ended up in a wheelchair after their honeymoon. After that, Fiona became pregnant with Issei's child, who cried while hugging Fiona's belly. They're now friends. Lloyd and Yor congratulated them both, and 9 months later Fiona gave birth to her beloved Alicia. After that day, Issei lived his life as he deserved and deserves. End of flashback. Issei. Now I live happily with Fiona and my daughter, and I am happy. I no longer care about having a harem. I just want my Fiona in my life. He said seriously. Issei's exes were seething with jealousy, while his former friends stood with their heads down. Roberto. Congratulations Issei, if you don't mind, could I meet your daughter and have her play with my children? He said with a smile. Issei. Of course, you're welcome. He said with a smile. Issei saw the traitors and looked at them seriously. Issei. And when they found out about Ryu's lie, he said seriously. Rias. It was a year ago, she said sadly. Issei. Could you tell me? He said seriously. Searches. Of course, he said as he began to count. Chapter 5 Truth in the Light. Searches. Well, it all happened, he said, recounting everything. Flashback to 1 year ago. Rias narrates. By Ryu, you don't know how happy I am by your side, along with the others, the nights of passion you give us, the caresses and the affection we receive from you. Now I am happy because we will get tired of this and join our lives forever. I'm in the bridal room now, and we were all dressed up for our day. Everyone came, well except for Roberto who left the alliance of factions 4 years ago when we left Issei. He deserved it, I couldn't take it anymore. Some time later. I narrate. Everyone was in a church as they all watched Issei's former harem walking towards the altar. They all had such beautiful wedding dresses that anyone would be lucky to marry one of them. At the altar stood Ryu with a happy smile, while once they arrived, Michael was there as the father. Thus began the ceremony, and at the end something happened that many did not expect. Michael. Girls, do you accept Ryu Hyoudou as your husband until death do you part? He said while telling the girls. All. We accept. They said happily. Michael. And you, Ryu, do you accept these girls until death do you part? He said while looking at Ryu. Ryu gave an arrogant smile and looked at them. Ryu. He didn't accept, he said seriously. All the guests gasped in surprise upon hearing that. The girls were shocked because they couldn't believe it. They all started crying as they told her why. Ryu. There are factions I can't believe they fell so easily, he said while maintaining his same expression. Searches. What are you talking about? He said as he unleashed his power of destruction. Ryu. Easy, I only ruined my brother's life since he killed my best friend. Ha, it was very easy to convince you that Issei was a nuisance to you, he said arrogantly. Everyone was shocked to hear that because they couldn't believe it. Ryu. And to finish, you should have seen him cry when I slept with his girls and his friends, it was so much fun to see him like that. Look, he said while making a hologram where Issei was seen lying against the wall, while listening to the screams of pleasure from his ex-girlfriends. They all couldn't believe it. They had betrayed Issei for his brother, and worse, his brother had used them only for his revenge. Meanwhile, the girls were on the ground crying and remembering how Issei treated them, while Sirzechs and Succubus unleashed their power. Sirzechs. How dare you? He said as he unleashed his power. Ryu. You guys aren't far behind, you know, he said arrogantly. Sirzechs. What do you mean? He said, confused. Ryu. I slept with their wives, ha, they're too good in bed, he said lustfully. Sirzechs and Succubus looked at their wives to see if it was a lie, but they saw them on their knees crying and begging for forgiveness. Ryu. Well, my work is done, my revenge is now complete, goodbye forever, you useless lot. He said as he left in a magic circle. No one reacted to this revelation, and the first to react was Rias, who disappeared in a magic circle. Next was Mio, who disappeared in a magic circle. Thus they both arrived at Issei's home and Rias, without thinking, broke down his door and they both entered his house. The horrible smell of rotten food reached their noses, but they didn't care and went looking for Issei. They went to his room, but there was nothing there. His room was clean, and there was a rather large box on a nightstand. Curiosity got the better of them, and they opened the box. When they saw what was inside, they fell to their knees and began to cry like they had never cried before in their lives. What was in the box were engagement rings with her name engraved on each ring. Each ring had the name of each girl from Issei's former harem, without missing a single one. Rias took her ring with her name on it and hugged it while many tears flowed. I also take his and cry for having betrayed his partner. End of flashback. Isaka. Since that day we've been searching for you like crazy. I sent my foxes, but nothing. Not even one of them took off the ring you were going to give us. She said while showing her ring, which had her name on it. Serafal. But we're glad we finally found you. Come back to us and let's start over. She said with hope in her eyes. Issei. You think that's convinced me? It's not easy to forgive wretches like you. Besides, what makes you think I'll come back? He said seriously. Pervert. If not by fair means, then by foul means, he said while invoking his powers. They all did the same, but Roberto stepped in front. Roberto. They can't, he said, standing next to Issei. Searches. Don't get involved in this, Roberto, he said, activating his power of destruction. Roberto. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to let Issei return. He suffered enough damage at your hands. He said, activating his god mode. Azazel. So you betray us, what a shame, he said seriously. Roberto. And what right do you have to tell me that? He said seriously. Thus began a battle to recover Issei. Issei threw knives and fired shots at the traitors. Roberto is in charge of searches, Gabriel, Azazel, Zeus, Anubis, Serafal, and the other mass. While Issei takes care of the others. Issei and Zenobia combine cut for cut. Zenobia. We don't have to go this far, Issei. She said, trying to reason with Issei. Issei. Look who's talking, the one who hit me when I told her what that bastard was doing behind her back, he said while combining cuts. Zenobia grew sad at the memory, but she would have him back no matter the cost. Some time later. Everyone looked defeated, especially the mass who were badly wounded. Issei. Well, this is over, he said while pointing his gun at Ria's head, who was injured by Issei's bullets. Searches. Wait, we have a deal for you, Issei. He said as he tried to stand up, but Roberto stepped on his head. Issei. What kind of deal? He said seriously. Searches. Help us defeat the members of the Chaos Brigade, he said as Roberto removed his foot from his face. Issei. And what did he gain in return? He said seriously. Searches. We'll give you 50 million euros, he said seriously. Issei was surprised because that amount was very large. He could take Alicia to the best school in the world, he could take Fiona on vacation to Cancun, Brazil, Buenos Aires, and other Latin American countries. He could also retire from killing and live off that money for the rest of his life. Issei. Well, I accept, but if it's a lie, I don't care about dying, I'll kill them, he said seriously. Searches. Done, he said as he stood up and with difficulty shook Issei's hand. Issei. Remove this barrier so I can go home. Alicia must be worried about her father. He said seriously. They nod and remove the barrier, and Issei leaves along with Roberto. Scene change. Both adults were seen walking on the streets of Berlin. Issei. Why did you help me? If you wanted, you could have forced me to form an alliance with your faction, but you didn't. He said, looking at Roberto. Roberto. You know, you're one of my friends, and I didn't do it because you deserve to live happily, even as a murderer. I'm still grateful that you saved my children and wives from Rizavum's hands. He said with a smile. Issei. It was nothing, besides, that happened years ago, you don't have to keep helping me, he said, looking at him. Roberto. Dragon gods like me never forget the favors people have done for us, he said, looking at Issei with a smile. Issei. Wow, thanks. And what would have happened if your children and wives had died? I always wonder that. He said, looking at him. Roberto. It would have been the beginning of Armageddon. Treachery and I have differences. If I had seen one of my children dead, there would only be chaos, not only on Earth, but in the supernatural world. Even Office, Shiva, Great Red, and other gods couldn't stop me. He said seriously. Issei. Well, we've arrived at a friend's house. Do you want to come in? He said as he walked towards the entrance. Roberto. I'd like to, but I have paperwork to do. It'll have to be later. He said with a smile. Issei. I understand, well see you Roberto, he said with a smile. Roberto. Same here, Issei, he said as he left in a magic circle. Issei opened the door to tell his friends and wife about his mission. Chapter 6 Work. When Issei arrived at his friend's house, he told them about the work they all do together. Fiona. So those bitches want you back, she said jealously. Issei. Don't be jealous, I only love 2 people. He said with a smile. Fiona. Who's the other one? She said, now green with jealousy, while her friends broke out in a cold sweat. Issei, don't worry, I only love you Alicia. You two are the best thing I have. He said while kissing her, which made her forget her jealousy and reciprocate. Fiona. Don't play like that, she said, pouting. Issei just laughed and continued. Issei. Listen, if we take down the Chaos Brigade, we can retire and give our children a good future. Listen, this organization is worse than organized crime and the mafia combined. If we eliminate them, we will be recognized worldwide and save millions of lives. He said seriously. Everyone was interested and accepted, since if the Chaos Brigade is destroyed, the enemy of the whole world will be gone. The next day. The Gremorys could be seen approaching Issei's house. They all had serious injuries after the fight they had last night with Issei and Roberto. Sirzechs knocks on the door and an albino girl answers it. Alicia. Yes, she said, looking at them. Sirzechs. Excuse me, but is your daddy here? He said with a smile. Alicia. If dad is looking for you, he's coming now, she said as the Gremorys had a drop of sweat on their brows. Then Issei arrives along with Fiona. Issei. Oh, it's you guys. Well, before we go, we have to wait for my friends who will arrive. He said seriously. They nodded and Alicia looked at the wounds they all had. Alicia. What happened to you? She said, seeing how they all had bandages on their bodies. No one answered that question, since Issei's former harem felt uncomfortable giving them an answer. Issei. Listen, honey, they misbehaved and daddy and a friend had to teach them a lesson. He said with a smile. Alicia. Ooh, she said, understanding what he said. Then they see Fiona arrive, ready. Fiona. I'm ready, she said while hugging Issei around the neck, causing Issei's ex-harem to become jealous. Fiona knew who they were, and to make them even more jealous, Fiona, in an act of pleasure, gave Issei a hickey on his neck, causing him to blush. Issei. Hey Fiona, you know your hickeys are hard to get rid of, he said while blushing. Fiona. But you liked it, she said flirtatiously. Issei leans close to Fiona's ear and says. Issei. I'm going to prepare the chain because I'm going to punish you like a dog, he said in a low voice so his daughter wouldn't hear. Fiona blushes so much that steam rises from her ears. The Gremorys, being demons, were able to hear that and Sirzechs was blushing while Issei's ex-girlfriends were seething with jealousy. Then they see a car approaching and it parks in front of Issei's house. Anya, Yor and Lloyd are coming down. Anya. Alicia, she said as she ran towards her. Alicia. Anya, she said as they took each other's hands and began to play. Issei. Well, traitors, I present to you Yor and Lloyd, my friends. He said seriously. Yor. It's not a pleasure to meet you. I'd like to kill you, but I can't. She said seriously, pulling out a stake. Lloyd. My name is Lloyd and I can tell you that you are disgusting people, he said seriously. The Gremorys lower their heads but will not give up on obtaining Issei's forgiveness. So Issei offers them entry to his house and they enter. Once inside, 5 minutes passed and a magic circle appeared on the floor. Issei smiled, for he knew who it was. Thus appears Roberto along with his wives Lucoa, Toga, Miyuki, Brunhild, Kurumi, Miku and Aphrodite. His children Ardor, Kana, Mayu and Hyoudou also appeared. Roberto. Hello Issei, he said with a smile. Issei. Hello Roberto, he said as they greeted each other. Roberto. Hello friends of Issei, my name is Roberto, leader of the Aztecs, he said with a smile. Kurumi. My name is Kurumi, Roberto's main wife, she said while hugging him. Toga. I'm Toga, it's a pleasure. I'm also Roberto's wife. She said while giving him a kiss on the cheek. Miyuki. My name is Miyuki, I am Roberto's wife, she said while bowing. Lucoa. Hello, my name is Quetzalcoatl, but you can call me Lucoa, and I am Roberto's wife. She said while hugging Roberto from behind, causing her breasts to be on Roberto's head. Miku. My name is Miku and I am Roberto's wife, she said with a smile. Brunhild. My name is Brunhild and I am Roberto's wife, she said while hugging him. Aphrodite. Hello, my name is Aphrodite and I am Roberto's wife, she said while burying Roberto's face in her enormous breasts. Yor and Fiona covered Lloyd and Issei's eyes so they wouldn't see Aphrodite's half-naked body. Lloyd. You know I love you, Yor, he said while his eyes were covered. Issei. Same to you, Fiona, I only love you, he said while his eyes were covered. So they take their hands away from both of them and they continue. Ardor. I'm Ardor, it's a pleasure, he said with a smile. Mayu. I'm Mayu, it's a pleasure, she said with a smile. Kana. I'm Kana, it's a pleasure, she said in a monotone tone. Hyoudou. I'm Hyoudou, the eldest son. It's a pleasure. He said with a smile. Yor. It's a pleasure, children, he said while stroking their heads. Lloyd. Our daughters are playing in the yard, you can go join them if you want, she said with a smile. Roberto's children. SSSSSSSSSS, they said as they ran to the patio. Roberto. Be careful with the girls, he said as his children nodded. Fiona. How strong are your children, Mr. Roberto? She said, looking at him. Roberto. Enough to destroy 35 countries in an instant, one at a time, he said seriously. That sent a chill down the spines of Issei and his friends. Roberto. Don't worry, they know how to control themselves, he said with a smile. That calmed them down, knowing their daughters were safe. Roberto. Well Issei, this is the report, he said while summoning a hologram. Roberto. When those idiots betrayed you, the Chaos Brigade attacked both the human and supernatural worlds, but their attack was stronger and more effective because they have very strong troops, he said seriously. Roberto. The Egyptian faction is in danger of being controlled by the brigade, as is the heroic one. The strongest factions, such as Angel, Fallen, Demonic, Yokai and Aztec, are not in danger. He said seriously. Issei. Wait, I understand that your faction isn't in danger from the Chaos Brigade, but how come they aren't in danger from the Chaos Brigade? He said seriously. Searches. When we realized the truth, that day we strengthened our faction. Now the Chaos Brigade is no longer a problem for us, but it is for the other factions. He said seriously. Roberto receives a call, answers it, and hangs up immediately. Roberto. The Chaos Brigade is attacking the Inca faction, let's go. He said, creating an Aztec circle. Miyuki. I'll stay here to take care of the children, she said seriously. Roberto. Okay, are you ready for your first day? He said seriously. Issei and his friends. Yes, they said seriously. Thus they went through the magic circle where the Chaos Brigade would meet the executor Issei, now better known as the Judge of Sinners, along with his friends. Chapter 7 Massacre. In Lima, Peru. Several fallen angels and demons were seen attacking the state. The Incas fought against the rebels, but there were too many of them. The citizens were running for their lives, but one girl was caught by fallen angels. Angel-1. Wow, what a nice girl, he said while touching her breasts. Girl. No, please, she said crying. Angel-2. Don't worry, if we have fun with you we might let you go alive, he said with lust in his voice. In Angel-3 he was going to tear his blouse, but several knives hit him directly, killing him. Angel-2. But what? He said, but didn't react in time because a shower of squatting hit him full force. Angel-1 saw Issei throw several knives at high speed towards him and he couldn't dodge them, so they hit him directly, killing him. The girl ran away and then Issei and his group appeared, accompanied by Roberto and his wives, and of course the traitors. Thus Issei began to shoot at the fallen angels and demons with his weapons. Dior fought with his stakes, which were divine thanks to Roberto, and killed several demons. Lloyd threw grenades, killing fallen angels. Fiona had 2 shotguns loaded with coin ammunition that could pierce several fallen angels and demons. Harumi made several clones and fired them with her rifles. Aphrodite sang a song that made demons and fallen angels tear out their ears or kill each other. Kuoh was in his dragon form and was eating fallen angels and demons. Brunhild had 2 swords and cut down fallen angels and demons. Thoga had a backpack and from it she took out several knives and threw them at the fallen angels and demons. Miku launched 2 light discs that cut through fallen angels and demons. Roberto was in his Irachi mode and was killing fallen angels and demons. The traitors also attacked fallen angels and demons, killing them. 5 hours later. There was a great massacre in Lima, fallen angels and dead demons everywhere. The Incas helped survivors, and several magic circles appeared from which Aztecs emerged to help. In a building destroyed by the Chaos Brigade's attacks, Issei and his friends could be seen along with Roberto and his wives, and also the traitors. Issei was being healed by Fiona, who had received a wound on her arm from a light spear and another on her leg. Issei. Thank you, darling. He said while watching Fiona heal Issei's arm. Fiona. No problem, she said with a smile. Asia. I can heal you, Issei-san, she said as she approached. Issei. I don't want your help, you damn witch. He said angrily, pushing Asia away. Asia just sheds tears and goes to hug Rias. Roberto. Well, Issei, ever since they betrayed you, these attacks have been very common in America, especially these wretches attacking Peru and Mexico, he said seriously. Issei. And why is that? He said, looking at him. Roberto. Well, in Peru there is a very powerful treasure, and that is the sword of the first Inca. This sword is capable of destroying oceans and entire cities with a single blow. It is even more powerful than Zenobia's ex-Durandal. He said seriously. Roberto. And in Mexico I have many treasures under protection, one of them is the Spear of Destiny, he said seriously. Issei. Wait, Kuoh doesn't have that spear, he said, looking at him. Roberto. No, that's just a copy. The one Kuoh has doesn't even have the sweat of Christ. I have the real one. I also have Napoleon's 8 eggs, which are capable of destroying entire countries, Samuel's fangs, the 6 strings of sound, and many other treasures. He said seriously. Issei. Wow, and where did he get all that? He said, looking at him. Roberto. Bets, auctions, thefts, or I just found them. The United States was furious about losing the Spear of Destiny that I stole from them, he said seriously. Issei. Well, that explains why they attack so often. He said seriously. Roberto. Yes, now we have to go to Mexico to give them better weapons, he said as they all left in a magic circle. Elsewhere. Ryu looked very upset to see his brother again. Ryu. You wretch, do you really have to ruin this for him? He said while watching on the screen as Issei killed demons and fallen angels. Ryu. It's good that I have this, he said, taking out the Holy Grail. Thus Ryu begins to return to life as Napoleon's French soldiers and Hitler's Nazi soldiers. Ryu. Attack Africa and bring me Cleopatra's gems, he said as the zombies nodded and left. In Mexico. Issei was seen having his private moments with Fiona. Fiona. More, she said with total pleasure. Issei had Fiona in a doggy position while Issei penetrated her like a drawer that won't close. Fiona. Come on Issei, we have to give Alicia a little brother. She said excitedly. Issei. Oh yes, I want another child, he said, giving Fiona a slap on the butt who let out a cry of pleasure. But what they didn't know was that Issei's ex-harem was watching this from the other side of the door. Bekeno had an excited face and tried to enter, but the door had a magical lock preventing anyone from entering. Bekeno. Let's go, she said while trying to break the seal, but received an electric shock. Israel. It will be useless for them to enter, the door is special, because once a person is inside, it automatically invokes a very strong magic circle to respect the person's privacy, he said seriously. Leo. Please break the seal, we want to have fun with Issei too, she said as she approached. Israel. He won't do it, besides, if they came in, do you think Issei would have hex with all of you? He said seriously. Rias. Of course, my lovely Issei can't resist my body, she said proudly. Israel. Ha, the Issei of the past loved your body, but the Issei of the present only feels disgust for you. Do you really think Issei will love you after what? He said seriously. Rias remained silent. Israel was absolutely right. Issei would never touch her again, but he wouldn't give up so easily. Thus, Issei's former harem decides to continue watching the action between Issei and Fiona. Some time later. Issei. So the Egyptian faction is under attack, he said seriously. Roberto. If it looks like dead Nazi and Napoleonic soldiers are attacking, go with your group and defend the Egyptian people, he said seriously. Issei. Understood, he said as Roberto made a magic circle and they entered and disappeared from the place to defend the faction that was being attacked. Chapter 8. Attacks in Egypt. Issei and his companions were seen emerging from a magic circle where they witnessed the entire Egyptian territory being attacked by Nazi and Napoleonic soldiers. Thus Issei draws his weapons and with great speed decapitates a few with a machete. Yor pulls out 2 stakes and throws them at the heads of 2 Nazi soldiers, killing them. But Yor then lunges at them and starts hitting their vital points to kill them easily, but it doesn't do much good since it only stuns them a little. So Lloyd saw that and he pulled out his pistols and started shooting at the heads of the Napoleonic armies. Fiona pulls out 2 shotguns and starts firing, but these weren't just any shots. They were loaded with coins, piercing through several armies and even burying themselves in the concrete. Roberto, in his god form, would simply extend his hand so that any zombies that tried to approach would be killed by an infinite number of attacks invisible to everyone else, but too fast for the gods. 5 hours later. The Egyptians were seen thanking Issei for saving them, while many children asked for his autograph while holding a picture of him in the Red Emperor's armor. Issei felt somewhat uncomfortable as it reminded him of the betrayal he suffered, but he still gave them his autograph since neither the children nor the supernatural citizens were to blame for him being replaced by someone else. So the children were happy as they watched the Oppi Dragon's autograph. Issei. Well guys, we need to call Roberto Sama to see how he's doing. He said while taking out a piece of paper with a Irachi symbol and a magic circle appearing in his ear. Roberto. What's wrong, Issei? He said from the other side. Issei. How are things going over there? He said while Roberto was speaking. Roberto. Well, the zombies weren't a problem, but watch out for those bitches that are with you, he said while Issei just nodded. Thus they both cut off communication and Issei sees his friends. Issei. Alright guys, let's take advantage of this and do a tour of the Egyptian faction, he said as they nodded. This is how Issei and Fiona look in a clothing store and Issei suffered a nosebleed because he saw Fiona wearing a Cleopatra costume. In another, Lloyd and Yor are seen dancing a traditional Egyptian dance. In another scene, Issei is seen hypnotizing a cobra with a flute and Yor was hypnotized in the same way as Lloyd, who had to take her somewhere else. The Gremory girls tried to get closer to Issei or seduce him, especially Akeno, but Issei just ignored them. Rias tried everything to get Issei's attention, but he just ignored her, making Rias look ridiculous, as if she were trying to get the attention of a statue. Rias looked very scared as she saw Issei get on a camel with Fiona, who was hiding behind Akeno. They spent the rest of the day in the Egyptian faction enjoying everything until they arrived at a hotel where everyone, including the traders and the leaders, would be staying. Anubis. Well, Issei-kun, I hope you enjoy being here. He said, but Issei just ignored him. This is how Issei is seen going up to his room, since it was mandatory to sleep separately by order of Anubis. So he arrived, but upon arriving he saw someone, and he was annoyed because it was Keribit, the daughter of Anubis, who was wearing very revealing clothes. Keribit. Hello Issei-kun, she said while walking towards him in a very provocative way, but Issei was just annoyed. Keribit. Why aren't you having a good time with me? I promise I'll let you touch my breasts. She said while taking his hand and bringing it closer to her chest, but he just lets go of her grip. Issei. Why don't you go with that bastard Ryu? That imbecile makes you scream like the gold-digging bitch you are. He said coldly and seriously. Keribit was hurt by Issei's comment, so her eyes lit up to a pink color and she slowly approached Issei while he was hypnotized by that color. Keribit. Issei Hyoudou, when my hypnosis ends, you will do everything I say. You will do all the perverted things to me that you do to that bitch you call your wife. You will buck me so hard that I won't be able to walk for days and you won't stop until I'm pregnant, is that clear? He said, but Issei regains some of his consciousness and stabs himself in the thigh with a knife, breaking Keribit's hypnosis. Issei. I'd rather lick a dog's dick than have sex with you, you damn bitch, he said while throwing a knife at her, which caught on a piece of her lingerie and embedded in the wall. So Issei goes with Fiona to spend the night and Keribit tries to remove the knife, but it's buried deep in the wall. In an act of desperation, he uses a portion of his supernatural strength and manages to pull the knife out, but this causes him to tear off a piece of the wall where Akeno is seen masturbating while holding a picture of Issei bathing with Fiona. They both look at each other and remain silent. But Issei. Issei was being bandaged by Fiona, who was scolding him for doing that. Fiona. You idiot. She said, hitting him on the head. Issei. I'm sorry, but it's that or having sex with that bitch, the daughter of Anubis, he said while Fiona had an annoyed face. Fiona. When I see her, I'll shove a grenade up her damn AIDS-ridden vagina, she said while showing a very powerful grenade. Issei. It's not necessary, remember the Napoleon plan. He said as she nodded. Fiona. I can't wait, she said with a smile. Issei. Well, since we have the room for the two of us, how about we give Alicia the little brother she wants? He said as Fiona gave a lustful smile and he took Issei and began to kiss him. Thus, in Fiona's room, several thumps of meat were heard, followed by much applause. In one corner, Asia could be seen crying while holding her rings, as she had tried to heal Issei, who was bleeding from his thigh, but he only told her to leave, since he didn't want the help of a heretic. The next day. Everything was visible, and Roberto was talking. Roberto. Well Issei, we'll go to Kuoh, Japan now, since I've been told that many rogue angels are there. He said seriously. Issei. I understand, he said as they made a magic circle and everyone disappeared. In Japan. It was a beautiful night in Kuoh, where a magic circle with Irachi's symbol appeared in the Kuoh forest, and Issei and the traders emerged from it. Roberto. Well, Issei and your friends will go to the north while Rias and her group will go south, the leaders and their soldiers to the east, and I, along with my soldiers and my wives, will go west. He said seriously. So they all left, but Rias tried to protest to stay with Issei, but it was too late since everyone had already gone to their places. But Issei. Issei is seen walking through the streets of Kuoh, prepared for anything. As they walk, they see two people begging, while the other people passing by simply ignore them. Issei saw those people and was surprised because it was Venelana and Grayfia who were in a state of malnutrition and poor hygiene. Issei saw them and couldn't believe it. They had been at the top of their game, but now they were at the very bottom of the social ladder, a place no homeless person would ever want to be. So Issei approaches and gives them a wad of 10,000 yen bills. So they both raise their heads and see someone they thought was dead, someone who was once their friend. Both. Issei-kun, they said speechlessly. Chapter 9 Reunion. Issei saw two women who had once been on top but were now at their lowest point. Issei. It's been a long time since I've seen you girls, he said while looking at them. Grayfia. Issei-kun, I thought you were dead. She said as she looked at him. Issei. Well, no, and tell me what you're doing here, he said while looking at them. Venelana. Well, this is our punishment for sleeping with that wretch Ryu. When our husbands found out, they asked for a divorce and took everything from us. Houses, fortunes, money, powers, everything. Basically, we're powerless demons from now on," she said with her head down. Issei looked at them and remembered that yes, they had slept with Ryu, but they were never mean to him. On the contrary, they still treated him like a member of their family, especially Grayfia, and it didn't seem fair to him that they should be left with nothing. "Issei. Stand up," he said very seriously. Both women obey and stand up. "Issei. Guys, can you cover for me? I'll take you somewhere better," he said as Fiona pouted. Issei approached her and kissed her forehead. "Issei. I promise I won't be long," he said as she just smiled and nodded. "Lloyd. Be careful, Issei," she said as he nodded and led both women away holding hands. Some time later. Issei's old house looked somewhat worn from the time he had abandoned it, but it still looked to be in good condition. So he searched under the rocks and found a hidden key, while Grayfia and Venelana had several bags. So they go in and cover their noses because of the horrible smell. Issei. "Heh, I forgot I left the groceries rotting when I left Kuoh," he said while looking at the table with the rotten food and some mold on it. So Issei took the table and destroyed it, throwing the remains in the trash. Once he finished, he saw Venelana and Grayfia and took their hands. Some time later. Venelana and Grayfia were seen in the bathtub enjoying a bath they really needed since it had been a long time since they had enjoyed such a bath. Venelana was just lost in thought as she felt the hot water on her body. "Grayfia. Are you alright, Venelana-sama?" she said while looking at her. "Venelana. You know that Sama is no longer necessary, you can save Venelana without the Sama, but no, tell me why Issei-kun helps us. We didn't help him when Rias and the others left him, we slept with his brother, and the worst part was that we didn't try to do anything when they took Mio away from him," she said while she was thoughtful. "Grayfia. I wonder the same thing, why is she helping us? I don't understand," she said while looking at her long hair that reached her knees. Venelana. "It's obvious we need a haircut, right?" she said while looking at her long hair, but hers reached her legs. This way they enjoy a nice bath while helping each other wash their backs. Some time later. Issei. "Enjoy, girls," he said while Venelana and Grayfia drooled at the sight of a great delicacy on the nightstand. So, without wasting any time, they began to eat all the food there without thinking much about it. Issei had a nervous smile because they both had a big appetite, as did Fiona. Thus they were satisfied as they looked at all the empty plates. "Issei. I hope you enjoyed it," he said as he took the empty plates and carried them to the sink. Venelana. "Thank you Issei-kun, but why?" she said while Issei looked at her. Issei. "I don't understand," he said while looking at her. Grayfia. "Why are you helping us? We never helped you when Rias and the others left you. We never protested when they took Mio away from you. Why are you helping us after being such bitches too?" she said, but couldn't finish because Issei hugged her. Issei. "Never say you were bitches, tell me how you would have helped me if that crimson bitch had left me, what good would your protest have done when they took that boar away from me, I bet that siskin wouldn't have listened to you, you know, besides you were never rude to me, you never turned your backs on me, even if you had slept with Ryu," he said while still hugging Grayfia. Venelana. "But she said but was interrupted. Issei. "Tell me, you were hexily frustrated, right? When was the last time those idiots touched you?" he said while looking at them. Venelana. "Zudicus hadn't touched me for 500 years. I knew he was sleeping with other women and I wanted to get his attention with an affair, but I couldn't," she said with her head down. Grayfia. "Sirzechs hasn't touched me in 300 years. I even tried to get him drunk to get him to have hex with me, but he just fell asleep from the excess alcohol," she said while her head was down. Issei. "I see, but you don't have to suffer anymore because of them. I'll give you this house. From now on, this house will be yours and yours alone. I'll give you a share of the money that Siskin will give me and you can't go into business together," he said with a smile. Neither of them knew what to say. Issei was giving them a house and money even though they had never helped him in the past. Without thinking, they threw themselves at Issei, who was blushing as he felt the breasts of both women. Issei. Thinking, both of them are braless and feel just as soft as Fiona's, he thought, blushing deeply. But Fiona and her friends. Fiona and her friends were seen subduing some rebellious demons with the help of divine weapons, courtesy of Michael, and Fiona, without thinking, broke a demon's neck. What's wrong, Fiona?" he said, looking at her. Fiona. "I don't know, I feel the urge to tie Issei up and torture him, but why?" she said while feeling that Issei was doing something he shouldn't. Lloyd was confused but didn't take it seriously and tied up the rebellious demons. Issei's son. They then part ways with Issei and thank him for giving them this. Issei. "Well girls, stay safe. This will all be over soon. And you know, if you want to start a business to earn a living, I'd recommend you buy a shop and open a bakery. Your cakes are the best I've ever eaten, especially the cheesecakes. He said with a smile that made both women blush slightly. Thus Issei leaves, saying goodbye to both women who promised to support Issei in whatever he needed, even though they had no powers, thanks to a spell that Sirzechs cast on them to prevent them from using their powers as punishment for their infidelity. And maybe if they had the chance, they could have something with Issei later on, although dreaming is good. Chapter 10 Alliance and Attack. Rias. Are we seriously going to recruit these traitors? She said while looking at Grayfia and Venelana with great annoyance. Roberto. I remind you that I distribute the cheese, girl, and if you have something to say, tell me. He said as his eyes turned white, looking at Rias, who was terrified as she felt that Roberto was looking into her soul. Roberto. And besides, Issei needs 2 supernatural members to back him up and I can't help him. He said seriously. Bekeno. We can help him, he doesn't need those unfaithful women, she said while Sirzechs was on her sister's side. Issei. I remind you that you also cheated on me, he said seriously. Bekeno remained silent, as it was true. Sirzechs. They can't help Issei-kun, they don't have powers since I sealed them, and it will take months to break the seal, he said hoping Roberto would change his mind. Roberto. Heh, you thought that would make me put your sister with Issei? Heh, well, no. He said as he approached both women and hit them on the neck, making them both bleed. They both touched their necks as they felt their blood leaving their bodies, but then the veins in their necks began to turn black, while their pupils turned white. Both. They screamed while feeling an incredible pain that they had never felt even when they had their children, it was less painful. Issei. What's wrong with you guys? He said, but Roberto didn't say anything. Both continued screaming, and their 8 demon wings appeared, one by one falling to the ground and turning to ash. They both stared at their fallen wings on the ground as they turned to ash, realizing they no longer had any. Both were writhing in pain, and then they saw brown wings emerge from their backs. Everyone watched in amazement as 8 Aztec wings sprouted from each of them, and the symbol of Irachi appeared in their eyes. Roberto. That's it, I like that loyalty they have, I see they will be very loyal, he said as they both stopped screaming and fell unconscious, but Roberto gave them some of his energy. Issei. What did you do to them? He said confused as they slowly woke up. Roberto. Well, from today onwards, both Venelana and Grayfia are no longer demons, but Aztecs. I gave them a generous amount of my blood so that they would be of great help. He said as they both staggered a little but stood up, where Issei blushed since both their breasts and hips increased a little more. Fiona. And why are her breasts and hips bigger? She said while hitting Issei with a frying pan so he wouldn't see the 2 women who were looking at her enhanced body. Roberto. That's easy, Aztec genetics. Aztec women have genetics that make their breasts and hips like those of models. There's even an exclusive Aztec magazine that features the 10 hexiest Aztec women in the faction. He said this while Lloyd was interested in the magazine but fell unconscious from a kick by Yor, who was jealous. Roberto. They would definitely be in the top 5 and 4, he said while both of them couldn't believe it. Venelana. I feel much stronger, she said while noticing that she also had a younger body, like that of a 25-year-old girl. Grayfia. And I also feel that my energy reserves have increased, she said while summoning an ice spear and noticing that the ice of the spear was colder and sharper. Roberto. That's because of my blood, so Venelana and Grayfia, welcome to the Aztec faction, he said while giving them both a pamphlet. Grayfia. Guide for a reincarnated Aztec, she said while looking at a guide to control her new powers, her wings, her feeding, everything. Roberto. Okay girls, your first mission is to go to this location. Caesar discovered that there's a Ryu base around here. He said while giving Issei a map. Roberto. You guys go to this other area to attack one of Ryu's bases there, he said as Issei saw that their mission was in the Dragon Triangle, a very dangerous mission. Issei. Wait, going there is very dangerous, he said seriously. Roberto. Don't worry, this time I'll go with you, as will my wives. He said as a magic circle appeared, from which Roberto's wives emerged, except for Miyuki who was still taking care of the children. Rias. And we don't have any reinforcements, she said, looking at him. Roberto. You have the leaders and the clans, so good luck. He said while snapping his fingers and they left while Rias said something that Roberto didn't pay attention to. So Roberto snaps his fingers again and a magic circle appears where they disappear. In the center of the dragon's triangle. Ryu was seen watching some evil dragons who were under his control. Ryu. I can't imagine Sirzechs' face when he saw them in his territory, he said with an arrogant smile. At that moment, a fallen rebel approaches Ryu. Fallen angel. Ryu-sama, the leader of the Aztecs and the judge of sinners, along with his allies, are approaching, he said while outside, the gunshots of Issei and his friends, and the attacks of Roberto, along with Venelana and Grayfia, could be heard. Ryu. Damn it, that damn Issei is getting on my nerves, I'll send him to the other world once and for all, and maybe have some fun with his wife, he said while walking towards the battle site, but first he leads the evil dragons to Gremory territory with the help of some magic circles. Issei's son. Issei shot at the fallen angels he was trying to stab with his spears. Fiona was shooting at the demons and some scientists who were trying to approach her with her shotguns. Lloyd and Yor were combining their attacks, and while Lloyd was shooting at the rogue yokai, Yor was approaching them and hitting their vital points, killing them. Venelana and Grayfia were fighting with their powers, and Grayfia launched very powerful ice attacks that surprised even her. Venelana punched a familiar that was a huge snake, knocking it out of the fight. Venelana. Our powers have increased, I've never felt as strong, she said while using the same snake to knock her out of the fight and using her body to hit some angels who were trying to approach Issei by surprise. Thus, after a massacre, applause was heard and everyone saw that it was Ryu walking elegantly towards them. Ryu. Congratulations, that faggot Caesar told you about my base, right? Well, since you're here, it's too late because I sent all the troops to attack everything supernatural. Aztecs, fallen angels, everyone is under attack right now. He said with an arrogant smile. Roberto. Shit, you made us come to you, but that was just a distraction, he said while looking at him. Ryu. That's right, and you'd better go protect your territory since everything is under attack. He said as he was leaving, but someone interrupted him. Issei. I'll fight with you, he said while reloading his shotgun. Ryu remained silent and then began to laugh like a madman. Ryu. You know you can't beat me. You don't have that bitch Mio anymore and you're just a pathetic human, well I was able to defeat all the factions together. He said while pointing arrogantly at himself. Issei. Why do you hate me so much, Ryu? You used to be someone who cared about others and what the hell happened to you? Where did that Ryu go? He said while looking at him. Ryu. That Ryu died when you killed my best friend, he said angrily. Issei. You called that idiot your best friend? That idiot was involved in human trafficking, arms trafficking and money laundering and you say that piece of trash was your best friend? He said while looking at him. Ryu. Enough. I'll finish you right now. He said while preparing his powers. Roberto cast a spell on Ryu, which left him confused. Ryu. What did you do to me? He said while trying to throw a spear of light but couldn't. Roberto. I cast a spell on you so you can't use your other abilities, Issei. Good luck with that idiot. We're going to protect the supernatural beings that are in danger right now. He said while making a magic circle. Issei. If I don't survive, Fiona, I love you and tell our daughter that her father will always love her. He said as Fiona went to hug him and kissed him. Fiona, please come back Issei Jr. and Alicia will be waiting for your return. She said while taking Issei's hand and making him touch her stomach. Issei. Fiona, you, he said in disbelief. Fiona. What did you expect? We did it for hours every night. It was obvious this would happen, especially without using protection. She said while Issei was very determined. Issei. I promised to return, he said as he prepared to fight his brother. So she left with Roberto and they left Ryu and Issei alone. Don't miss the next chapter of this great fight between Akame vs Esdeath. Oh wait, wrong fight. Chapter 11 Ryu vs Issei. Ryu and Issei walked slowly until Ryu, without wasting any time, punched Issei, but Issei pulled out a spiked gauntlet and punched him in the face, leaving some holes in his cheek. Ryu. Damn it. He said as he moved from side to side where Issei tried to shoot him, but Ryu elbowed him in the nose, drawing blood. Issei pulled out his machete and lunged towards Ryu, but Ryu dodged the cuts and punched Issei in the face, sending him flying several meters. Issei landed on his feet and pulled out some gas bombs, throwing them at Ryu, who couldn't see anything. Ryu just stared at the smoke, but then he felt a cut in his chest and a punch in his stomach that drew blood. Ryu. Aya, scream of pain as he saw Issei about to kick him in the face, but Ryu was faster and punched him in the stomach. Issei. Thinking, damn it, Ryu is stronger than me. I have to be careful because I felt that punch pierce my stomach. He thought, taking a few steps back and touching his stomach. Ryu. You don't know when to give up, do you? He said as he walked forward. Issei. No, he said, taking out some special grenades and throwing them towards Ryu, who kicked one, but it was a mistake since the grenade exploded on his leg, sending him flying. As he was flying, the other grenades approached Ryu and exploded near him, causing him a lot of damage. Ryu crashed into a wall, creating a small crater. He stood up but felt a great pain in his leg. Ryu. Damn, if that bastard Roberto hadn't blocked my powers, you'd already be dead. He said as he launched himself at great speed towards Issei, who tried to hit him, but Ryu delivered a knee strike that made Issei's ribs crack, followed by a punch to the face that broke his nose. Issei. Aya, he screams but Ryu grabs his wrist and without thinking breaks his left wrist. Ryu Aya, cry of pain. Both panting as they looked at each other, they both launched themselves again, where Ryu and Issei exchanged blow after blow, neither of them backing down, their blood flying. Ryu saw a piece of metal on the floor, picked it up, and cut Issei's chest, tearing the part of his clothing that revealed his chest and abs. Ryu. Surrender if you want your beloved wife and daughter to live, he said while looking at him. Issei. Don't drag them into this, he said as he lunged towards Ryu and headbutted him in the chest, causing Ryu to feel 5 ribs break from the blow. Ryu. Aya, he screamed, but Issei, with all his determination, kicked him, sending him flying far away. Issei was tired and Ryu was no exception, but Ryu sees a chain, and an idea occurs to him. Issei approaches Ryu, but Ryu takes advantage of this and strikes Issei in the right leg with the chain, causing Issei great pain. Issei. Damn it. He said as Ryu stood up and used his chain to push Issei away. Issei. Thinking, damn, I'm out of grenades and my shotgun is far away from me, what do I do? He said, but saw a rock and moved away from Ryu. Ryu. What's wrong now? Are you afraid of me? You're a worthless piece of trash. He said as he continued to approach, twisting his chain. Issei. You're the only trash here, he said, throwing the rock towards Ryu who tried to dodge it, but it was too late as Ryu received the rock in the face which took out his left eye. Ryu. Aya, scream of pain while touching his missing eye, but Issei moves at great speed and pulls out a bag of salt. Issei opens the bag and throws it towards Ryu, who receives all the salt directly. Ryu. Aya, scream of pain as he felt the salt in his wounds and felt fire in the same open wounds. Issei approaches Ryu and begins to punch him in the face again and again and again, but Ryu had something up his sleeve. Ryu then pulls out a knife and stabs Issei in the stomach. Issei. Aya, scream of pain and Ryu buries it deeper. Ryu. See, loser, I will always win no matter what. Don't worry, I'll take care of your wife for you, and maybe I'll make your daughter a bit of fun for my soldiers. He said while Issei didn't hear him, he only felt the knife in his stomach. Issei only had one memory, and this one remembers something. Flashback. Fiona was seen in a hospital on a hospital bed, experiencing great pain. Doctor. Attention, code blue, I repeat, code blue, the baby is on the way, he said while the nurses did their work, while Fiona felt great pain. Issei approached her, but the nurses wouldn't let him pass. 8 hours later. The doctor comes out to see Issei, who stands up and asks. Issei. How are my wife and baby? He said while looking at him. Doctor. Congratulations, your daughter and wife are fine. You can go see them. They're in room 31A. He said as Issei left at great speed, leaving the doctor alone. Issei ran at great speed, dodging the nurses and some patients. So Issei arrives and opens the door where he sees Fiona, who looked very tired and was holding a small girl in her arms. Fiona. Honey, come here, she's our little girl, she said as Issei slowly approached his wife and daughter. Issei was simply carrying his sleeping daughter, and Issei couldn't help but cry tears of joy. Issei. She's perfect, he said while hugging his daughter very carefully. Issei approached his wife, kissed her, and hugged her while holding his baby in his right arm. Vindel flashback. Issei put aside the pain and saw a piece of iron on the floor, picked it up, and hit Ryu in the neck. Ryu. Damn it. He said while trying to pull out the knife, but Issei grabbed his hand, preventing him from doing so. Issei kept hitting him in the neck and Ryu felt the metal cutting him. Ryu then began to rain punches on his face, but Issei didn't care and kept hitting him. Issei. Die you damned wretch, he said using all his strength and decapitated Ryu with the iron. Ryu's body fell to the ground as his head hit the ground. Issei approaches Ryu's head and Ryu takes it to the Chaos Brigade base. So he finds gasoline and starts pouring it all over the place, burning it down along with Ryu's head. Issei takes Ryu's body and burns it, watching as Ryu's body is consumed by the fire. Issei fell to his knees as his injuries were revealed. Issei. I don't think I can go home. Lloyd, take care of your, Fiona, Anya, and Alicia. Roberto, take good care of my family. Forgive me, Fiona, I won't be able to return. He said as he felt his life slowly slipping away. Before falling, Issei saw a magical symbol where he saw a black head of hair and a white head of hair approaching him, and Issei fell. Chapter 12. Forgiveness and surprise. Fiona, Venelana, and Grayfia were seen with a sea of tears as they waited for the doctor from the underworld to give an answer about Issei's condition. Roberto. Don't worry, Issei will be fine, he said while looking at them. Fiona. I want to see him. Tell me why these girls are allowed to be with him. She said while looking at him. Roberto. Well, they arrived before Issei fell unconscious, it's the least they deserve, he said while she just waited along with her friends. 10 hours later. The doctor would arrive and give his answer. Doctor. I'm so sorry, he didn't survive. he said, shocking everyone, even Roberto. Issei's former harem was crying in disbelief. "Doctor? Do you want to go see him?" he said as they nodded sadly. So they go to where they see Issei, the hospital bed where they see two cats sleeping in his bed. "Lloyd. Issei, you can't be dead," he said as he approached him. "You're." "No," she said while she shed tears. "Lloyd. Issei, you were my friend. You know what? Our lives will never be the same without you," he said while taking his hand and shedding a few tears. Lloyd just cried, like the others, saying goodbye to Issei forever. "Issei. You fell for it, you idiot," he said as he suddenly opened his eyes. Everyone. I, they screamed in terror as Lloyd lunged at Issei. "Lloyd. He's a zombie, no way," he said while hitting him. "Lloyd. Go to hell, incredible play," he said, leaving everyone incredulous. "Issei. Thank you. You should have seen your face," he said while looking at him. "Lloyd. Wait, you're getting revenge, why?" he said and they both spoke. "Both. You faked mental retardation," they both said. "Lloyd. Well done, mate," he said while congratulating him on his practical joke. Issei. "Well, I got help from the doctor, thanks doc, the prank worked out well," he said while the doctor was on the other side of the door. "Doctor? No problem, this is a fun hospital," he said as he left. "Fiona. Issei, I'll take care of killing you right now," she said as she got on top of the mattress and began to punch him repeatedly in the chest, but then ended up crying and hugging Issei. "Fiona. Never do that again in your life," she said while hugging him. But you survived," he said while looking at him. Issei. "Well, let's just say 2 Nikos helped me," he said, pointing to 2 cats who were sleeping in the wardrobe. Fiona. "Well, you'll have to make it up to me for that mean joke of yours," she said as she pounced on Issei and began kissing him where he felt like kissing her. Roberto. "Guys, we'd better get out of here," he said as he took Issei's friends with him. Why?" he said, confused. Roberto. "Let's just say I've been in that position too, and I know what will happen next," he said while remembering the time he ended up seriously injured by the evil gods and their wives wasted no time with him by making the same joke that Issei made, but with his friend Israel. Thus Roberto helps Issei and puts up a sound barrier, since many doctors would have heard the clashing of flesh and Fiona's cries of pleasure. 4 hours later. Issei was seen covered with a hospital sheet and Fiona was hugging Issei's chest with a big smile. Issei. "Girls, I know you helped me, so come out," he said as both cats approached Issei. Issei. "Kuroka and Kaneko," he said as the cats lit up and became one less than the ones mentioned. Kaneko. "How did you know it was us?" she said while looking at him. Issei. "I don't know any other Nikos who have that ability to turn into cats," he said while looking at them. Issei. "I saw you, I saw how you helped me at the last moment before I fell unconscious," he said as they both looked surprised. Kuroka. "Issei Naya, we never tried to be unfaithful to you," she said as she approached. Issei. "But they did it anyway," he said, looking at them. Kaneko. "No, Issei senpai, we never did it, Ryu controlled us," she said as Issei's eyes suddenly opened. Issei. "How?" he said speechlessly. Kuroka. "Do you remember the day he told you he would take everything from you when he grabbed you by the neck, Naya?" she said as Issei nodded. Issei. "Wait, how do you know that?" he said while remembering that they weren't there that day. Kaneko. "We saw when Ryu did that and how he said those words to you. We were going to beat him up so he would learn to respect you and never touch you again, but the bastard set a trap for us and brainwashed us," she said while shedding tears. Issei. "How can I believe them?" he said as they both approached and touched his head and Issei saw Kuroka and Kaneko's memories. Thus he saw that what they both said was true since they even fought against Ryu, but they couldn't put up a fight. Thus Issei saw that the feelings they had for him were real and not just lies. Issei. "You guys," he said while crying, but not from sadness, but from happiness that both Nikos never cheated on him. Kaneko. "We know we can't be anything more than friends, so we understand," she said while shedding a few tears of sadness. Kuroka. "It will take a lot of effort to regain your trust, but we won't give up," she said as both Nikos were about to leave, but a voice stopped them. Fiona. You saved my husband, so I can share him with both of you," she said as they both turned around. Issei. "Are you sure?" he said as Fiona kissed him. Fiona. "Anyone who tries to save your life will be part of my family, and besides, they were never unfaithful to you, they were just controlled by that Ryu, so you can have a relationship with them if you want," she said with a smile. Both Nikos cried tears of joy as they rushed towards Issei and began kissing him all over his face. Issei. I'm glad you were always loyal to me, my kittens, he said while kissing Kaneko, who returned the kiss with tears of joy, and then Kuroka, who also returned the kiss with some tears of happiness. Some time later. Roberto. Well, now that Ryu has been defeated, the Chaos Brigade is disbanded, so we can finally have a peaceful life and repair the damage from the fight. He said as the leaders nodded. Issei. Well, my work is done, so where's my payment? He said while sitting in an armchair while Kaneko sat on Issei's lap eating ice cream. So Sirzechs gives him a check and Issei takes it. Sirzechs. Thank you very much, Issei-kun, and your next reward will be marrying your ex-girlfriends. He said as Issei-kun looked surprised. Issei. This wasn't part of the deal. He said as he approached at great speed and placed his machete against Sirzechs' neck. Sirzechs. Wait, I didn't decide that. The Demon Council decided it because they said that someone like you should have many offspring, so they gave you the best women from Hell, Heaven, Fallen, Asgard, Egypt, Olympian, and Valkyries. He said nervously as Issei tightened his grip on his machete. Issei. Send me to those elders now, he said as he nodded and took him to where the Demon Council members were. Thus they arrive at the Demonic Council through large doors, and without hesitation, he enters where only gunshots and magical attacks can be heard. 2 hours later. Sirzechs was seen waiting for Issei, who then emerged with his clothes all torn and carrying the heads of all the elders of the Demonic Council. Issei. Let's go, my engagement to them is over, so I don't want to see them again, understood? He said as Sirzechs nodded with a lot of sweat on his forehead. Some time later. Issei's house showed Fiona with a more noticeable bump on her stomach while she was making dinner, while Alicia was watching television. Venelana. Let me help you, she said while helping Fiona make the garnishes. Fiona. You know you don't need to help me with everything, she said while looking at both women. Grayfia. It's the least we can do to get a place to stay, she said while giving Fiona a break. Fiona. They know Issei gave them a new home, I don't. She said while looking at a fruit and starting to eat it. How did this happen? Well. After they became Aztecs, they were forbidden from entering Gremory territory, where they had to leave Kuoh. But Issei helped them by giving them a new home, which was his house where they now live together with Issei, Fiona, and Alicia. Fiona. Tell me something, do you feel anything for me, Issei? She said seriously. Venelana and Grayfia remained silent in response to the question, as Fiona had discovered them. Fiona. I'm not stupid, I know they spied on me and Issei when we were bathing, she said while both felt their cheeks burning. Grayfia. Yes, she said while looking at her. Venelana. Issei-kun was good to us, he even helped us when our ex-husbands took everything from us. We realized that we started to feel something for Issei, just like you feel the same for Issei, she said while Fiona just smiled. Fiona. You know, it doesn't bother me that you have feelings for Issei, since you've shown me these past months that you truly love Issei-kun. She said as they both smiled, now that they had Fiona's permission, they could be with Issei. Then they hear the doorbell ring. Fiona. Issei forgot his keys again, she said as she went to the door, but was surprised to find Kaneko and Kuroka there with suitcases, but also with a red-haired teenager. Both. We can stay here, they said while looking at her. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching, if you enjoyed this video please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day, bye.